Welcome back to Grim Volume. This is our first of hopefully many recap videos. In this video, we're going to go through sessions 1 through 12,
Crazy.
which is going to be awesome. So if you're watching this and you haven't watched those, just know there's going to be some major spoilers. We're going to be talking about all of it.
However, if you haven't watched those, it might be better just to watch this because some of the quality of those.
First one, yeah, we'll talk about that maybe in a little bit. The quality upgrade was massive, but thanks for tuning in. I'm the Dungeon Master of the first campaign, Jack. I'm joined by some awesome players, Aaron and Zach, who are playing characters, well, at least through session 1 through 12, Ren and Andrus. So we're excited. My first question, because we're doing this interview style, and I'm going to be asking them so we get that player knowledge of, from their perspective, what the campaign's like. The first question is going to be about the very beginning of the campaign, starting with Ren and Corradine in the tavern.
That's true.
You guys came down, you're prepared for mission. I want to know from a player perspective, your thoughts when it came from what you expected going into the campaign, and then what that really actually was. So from you first.
Like experiencing the world for the first time?
Well, more like what did you expect going into the world? Because we had like, for those of you, well, no one really knows, we had like a long time where this world was kind of brewing. Some people made their characters way in advance.
Andrus had been made probably a year and a half before the stream episode one happened.
So for you, it was a lot of time. What was like the comparison of like, okay, I'm expecting this, what is actually happening?
I feel like I expected, I had no reason to expect it, but I feel like I would walk out the door and just get attacked, and like it was immediately going to go to combat, and it would just be like, here's the main story, kick it in, and fight and combat and everything. But everybody came together really naturally, which I think was almost a surprise. I was like, oh, here we are, we're all together now. Yeah.
That's cool. I think that it's definitely different with a campaign that's planning to go on a much larger scale.
Right.
Yeah. Than a campaign that's only going to last a few sessions. You know? You're not going to have as much just like, oh, we got to get the story moving.
Right. And also just playing a character like Ren, I didn't go into meeting any of the other characters like super apprehensive like characters in the past I played as. Like I went into every character like, well, you're a new friend unless you tell me otherwise. And that was refreshing going into the world with that lens. And just everybody's another happy person and discovering, wait, what do you mean there's more than one God?
Exactly. That's a fun way to explore the world.
The definition of ignorantly blissful.
Literally, that's Ren.
So awesome.
Speaking of characters, I want to know your guys' perspective on the party in general. Maybe you can start us off.
Okay.
We can just talk about all the players. They'll see this, but more of like, on stream, that's when we get to explore the characters. But right now is our chance to talk players. Like, what are some things that have been kind of standing out to you in the last couple sessions, or in sessions specifically 1 through 12?
1 through 12. Well, I think, for the context of people who don't know, because no one does, for a year and a half for this campaign, I ran a campaign for the same group of people, minus and add a couple different individuals. Yeah. And one of the things that was super fun for me was getting to watch Corradine versus the previous character that Tim played in my campaign. Because in my campaign, Tim, which is a very, also dark setting, it was a very different setting.
Yeah, a very different setting.
And Tim's character was a very different character in the sense of brooding, foreboding, quiet, and like... intellectual as well. Like he was a very fun character in that regard, and he plays his characters so well. So it was really like almost there was a little bit of a trauma response for me when I heard him introduce himself for the first time. Like, I was like, no, here we go, the titles. But Corradine is such a fun like spark that the party has that no one else in the party really fills that spot. Like even Ren and Corradine were buddies, but like Ren is just like, oh, I'm Ren, and the world is a blank canvas. Whereas Corradine...
And so am I.
And so is he. Whereas Corradine comes in with a perspective of the world, but that perspective is just so open-ended. And like he's so open-ended. It was fun to see that.
And I think it's fun too because you can see that almost in sort of the opposite with Zarena in Rachel's character. Because Rachel just enters the scene and she's like, I don't like anybody. Everybody's mad. And I'm sure she has her good reasons for it. But it was funny to see that sort of dichotomy in those characters.
Absolutely.
Well, one part that I think was fun about that was I was talking with Rachel and I were talking about that pretty early on in I think post session 3 or 4 somewhere in there, and Rachel's like, yeah, I really didn't know how I was gonna play her. I imagined her a little differently, but session 1 happened and I just got gruff and grumpy and that fit, and I was like, it happens
when you're trying to be consistent with a character and you have an idea, you're like, I'm not sure. Once you start playing, that character makes himself.
It's so really true.
And Andrus for me is I didn't want Andrus to have any form of not personality. That's not correction. Any form of social skills or humor to him, but just because of how I play characters, somehow seeps in every little bit, and I enjoy how it's formed in him, because I just wanted him to be the dry stern rule following dad of the group, but now he's still a lot of the we need to stand on business and it matters, but in the times where it's not serious, he will poke fun and he will just do his dry awkward stuff, which is super fun.
I think it's been fun to watch Andrus and Levi's relationship, honestly, because Levi's a funny person because he'll spark a different dynamic with every single person that he's around, but just watching that whole, I remember specifically the encounter where he was like, I'm just matching your energy, because I think Andrus asked me, was do you dislike me? And you're I'm just matching your energy, and it was funny as a character and a player to watch Andrus be like, okay, makes sense to me, and then just not ask us. Aaron's like, no, let's dig into that. And he's like, yeah, it's fine. It checks out.
That's awesome. More diving in. I'm happy to see your guys' perspective on the characters, but diving into kind of the actual the meat of the recap. I mean, we go from a small town, and then we meet up with Levi and Roland.
Right.
Now, I think the main kind of drama of those 12 sessions was with Roland.
Right.
You said the name.
Yeah, exactly.
For those of you who haven't watched, maybe go back and watch a few, just for a context.
You might need to just go, if you go to somewhere random, it'll be some drama with Roland. I mean, it has to happen. I think that was it was fun for the beginning just to make things super interesting.
Yeah, it was chaotic.
It was very chaotic.
Yeah. It was unexpected too.
Yeah, it was very unexpected. And I think that it made the first 12 sessions very memorable.
Right.
Because sometimes the first sessions in a campaign can kind of be filler. You know what I'm saying? And even in TV shows and stuff, sometimes the beginning, you're just waiting for things to happen.
Yeah.
So it's fun to sometimes have drama, I guess, but I mean, from what you guys remember, because I have notes and everything, so I'm pretty up to date on all the details that have happened. I have to keep track of everything that's happened since the beginning so that I can keep tying things in. But you talked a little bit about session 1, but let's go through and just narratively, maybe each of you take a session. And listen, you don't have to.
I was gonna say, breaking it down by session, I don't remember
exactly. Well, I want to remember. I want to see what you guys remember.
Yeah. It was a while ago.
So you don't have to. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You don't have to get all the details right, but it'll be kind of fun, and I can fill in where there's details needed. Maybe both of you can, but if you want to take session 1.
Yeah. So I mean, session 1, we just kind of me and Tim's Courtney. There we go. I don't know what I was saying. Dean. Yeah. Ren and Dean. We woke up in the hotel and we awkwardly made our way down to the tavern where we were told to meet for a job, and we just kind of watched people slowly, without drama, enter the room until a particular person entered the room in the form of Zarena.
And
we had, I think I would say that's the first clip and the first drama of the campaign. That was the first big moment, and anything that I thought was going to happen with the stream or how we were going to play just went out the window immediately.
I feel like a lot of that too is that was the first time any of us have played on camera.
Yeah.
And so I think there was a tensity that was going on for the first 10-15 minutes in that broke.
Once immediately.
Once that section happened.
Backtracker! I was like, wait.
Yeah, that was awesome.
No, so that was remediating that was interesting, and that was fun. They came to peace somehow.
Yeah. In the same session.
In the same session.
Yeah.
In that session, did we hit the road? Or was we did. We hit the road to go find the slaver who we understood to be a slaver. We'd make our way out. Was it south?
North.
North.
You guys traveled north.
The other one.
A little encounter with some wolves.
classic.
The wolf
then-
firebolts.
Yeah,
From
countered
Kieran.
the wolves.
And then all the way up into the foggy lands, just south of the wetlands, where
Yeah.
you guys encountered a few goblins.
I remember how that started. I remember having a conversation
That was a good moment.
specifically with Kieran and being like, "Hey, I feel like we got off on the wrong foot. Let me help you look, or even take the lead. I feel like I'm down with natural elements. I've got this." And he was like, "Okay, cool." And immediately someone got shot in the back.
Dean.
I'm pretty sure
That was a great
immediately Dean
moment.
got
That
shot.
was
And I
awesome.
just remember like just sitting there like Azren being like, "Great, well there goes my
yeah.
chance to be impressive."
Didn't you quite literally go to roll, fail, and you just get shot? Or did you even roll? I forget.
I don't think I had the chance to roll because I remember the session
Yeah.
after that. I made
So-
the joke where I was like, "We didn't really like shake on it."
Yeah, exactly. I didn't
Yeah.
have the chance to start
Yeah.
watching before there was already
So
goblins
funny.
waiting. And
I was like,
yeah.
"I'm so perceptive. This will be great."
Yeah,
yeah. Yeah.
that was awesome. Well, that was pretty much the end of session.
That was the end of session 1. Yeah.
Yeah, that
that was
was
session two.
session 1 was kind of crazy. I usually like thinking about the sessions outside of session like blockage and more
Yeah.
of like day by day progression. And like like sometimes like a couple of days if we're doing travel.
Yeah.
Session 2 was spicy.
Session two
Because
was awesome.
session 1 we didn't have Levi or Roland with
Yeah,
us.
exactly.
Didn't have Silas and Kenny. And Kenny hadn't played with the group yet
Yeah.
as a full scale. He was a new addition to the group that didn't join in my
Yeah.
campaign. And so it was very exciting to see what sort of characters were going to be brought from them.
Yeah.
And it was a very dramatic way that we were introduced to them with Kieran and Zarena. Kieran and Zarena going
Yeah.
up to see what was going on the top of the
Yeah.
ruins.
There's a reason the title of that one is Warning Shot.
Warning shot. Yeah, and it, I think, poetically describes the differences in perspectives that one thing can have from multiple different people.
Yeah.
Because I think Zarena would believe that was a warning shot.
Yeah.
Whereas a handful of us might say that was an attack
yeah.
roll. You
Well,
know?
it was
that
an
was a-
attack roll.
That was a missed kill shot. is what that was.
And because of her class and what she rolled, like that would have been a kill shot. It was
Yeah.
really funny,
You
actually.
can't kill what's already dead.
Right. But like I mean, I think it was a really interesting setup to the future of just how our dynamic with Roland was
Yeah.
gonna go.
Yeah.
Because I don't think by any means that Roland's intention was to have just constant like stress. I know that Kenny made him specifically to be an antagonistic character
Yeah. A stressor.
and a stressor to like help grow that.
Yeah.
But we really got off on the wrong leg, you know, with Roland,
It's
and
true.
in turn kind of with Levi because
In a way.
because
Yeah.
Levi had a weird companionship that he didn't like. He's
Yeah.
just like, this guy sucks to talk to,
Yeah.
but at the same time he would get defensive of Roland pretty much any time anyone got aggressive towards him,
Yeah.
and so
It was a very interesting way to
right.
have everything come together.
And I'd also say it was the first real fight that
Yeah.
the party had.
Yeah.
Which was an awful opening.
Yeah.
Because we got lined up down that stairway with all of the slow, heavy melee hitters in the back who couldn't pass anybody. And then me and Kieran?
Yeah,
I believe.
and Levi.
Yeah.
And Levi. Well, Levi teleported.
Yeah.
But Kieran and I were the only ones who made it into the front room and got
Before
out
it
of the
started.
line of fire from a certain Saul who
Yeah.
hit us with that lightning bolt.
Yeah.
And that was just a crazy
fun.
fight.
That hurt.
Is that where session 2 ended?
I mean, it ended with
You guys
Dean.
resting up.
We fight, and then Dean ran away and chased a ghost etchark
Yeah.
into a secret room that didn't actually exist.
That was
at least
that was fun.
to the rest of us.
Yeah, to everyone else's perspective.
Yeah, and that was it. Ended with him coming out the bottom and grabbing Saul.
Right.
And that was crazy watching that unfold with Dean just as a player.
Yeah.
Because it really shifted the expectation I had of what his whole build was going to be. And I think,
Yeah.
seeing it evolve is still, very much what you would
Right.
expect.
Right.
But it's like,
But there's questions.
that warlock coding is like, what's this doing
Well,
here?
and I for people who didn't get to watch it, like Dean and Tim crafted his character to be a weak person in the first elements of the story.
Yeah.
Like he was incapable. His whole thing was that his parents and his community threw him out pretty much because he was different from the rest of them and was like cursed with frailty. Which was a stigma and a problem in their community, and he thought that it was a problem in himself as well. And I'm really excited to go down that line with Dean in the upcoming arcs, where it's like, as someone who's played, warlocks and, the like lean on the powers of other creatures, it's an interesting character development to think that like interesting character development to be like, you know, is it your power? Is it your accomplishments, or is it you relying on something else?
Yeah.
And I think that was a cool thing to see with Dean, where he's like, it's, you know, new strength flows through me and stuff like that.
I think it's especially interesting too with Dean because it doesn't feel like your normal warlock, right? Mm-hmm. It doesn't feel like even as a player, it almost feels like he hasn't come to terms with the grandeur of whatever he's getting this power from,
right,
which is gonna be a thing. I also feel like you can't mention Dean without mentioning how awesome just everything he does with the gears and stuff is.
His flavor is really something.
It's
really
on
cool.
point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's also the dynamic of having to deal with two deities or two like super powerful beings clashing. Because a lot of times when people multi-class, at least what's happened with your character in my campaign, is
it doesn't overlap.
We don't overlap the entering deity overpowers the previous one, and it's interesting.
And most of the times you see that, and it's immediate,
right? And like sometimes it draws out a little bit, but like it's usually a decision of it's going to replace, and it's not going to be them existing, at the same time.
But that's definitely something that I'm glad that players don't acknowledge because, characters don't acknowledge because that is something players have to, knowing what is really the situation,
right?
Yeah.
But the characters themselves, like Cordy, you know, who knows what he knows?
Oh yeah.
And everyone else doesn't even know what he knows. You know,
right.
So it's like
we just see a mouth on the side of his neck.
Yeah. Everyone's
which we'll probably need to talk about sometime.
There's a lot of things the party needs to talk about.
Yes, there is so much.
Okay, the next couple sessions, just because I don't think there was as much going on.
The only other major thing that happened there was us meeting the prophet.
That's true.
Yeah. Toru,
yeah.
and learning about Aheen.
Toru is the mole.
The mole.
Yeah.
Right.
Who knows what happened to him?
Who knows what happened
Nobody
to
knows.
Toru.
Toru's out there, right?
But I think Aheen is going to be something that comes back to us in later parts of the story for sure. Because it's one of those things where it's like, you know, it could be a plot hook that we choose or not to follow. That's like you throwing that out there for us and being like, are we going to go this route in the story? You know? Because we could have just said, let's not do any of this other big stuff. Let's talk to Toru and Cook. What was his name? So with a J, I think? Jahar. Yeah.
Yep.
Toru and Jahar, and like, let's follow them for a bit, or like go with them and do something, or maybe even like just talk for a few days about it.
But I knew the dynamic of the party. You guys did not care, bro.
No, we did not.
And most of the things in the campaign, your party is. I mean, this party is such a like. Oh, we really don't care about this, and not in like a bad way. It's in like a kind of fun way.
Yeah. It's in a realistic way in the sense of these are all characters that don't have a grand perspective of the picture.
Absolutely not. And most of the characters, which is really interesting, are like 19 years old. They're like a bunch of kids like wandering around.
Me,
like,
Kieran.
15.
Yeah. Me and Kieran. And what's Val now? Val's older, I assume.
Yeah,
I assume he's not 19.
That's later. That's
but
we haven't gotten to that section.
Yeah, this is
we haven't gotten
1 through 12.
Sorry, but
so,
I know.
Yeah, no, I know.
But
during this portion, at least,
it's
mostly children, pretty much.
Yeah,
really. Like,
I think it's interesting you mentioned that most of the party didn't care about a lot of things because Ren was still learning what to care about. And I don't know if you remember when we were in there and we were leaving the spiders. Ren was like, "There's supposed to be 4 captives. We only have 2. We should keep looking."
That was a big thing.
Any rational person would be like, "We don't have the resources to keep looking."
Right.
Ren's not exactly rational,
right?
And so that was an interesting, almost character development point for Ren, where he was like, "Well, I guess." This isn't important because we're more important than that. Right, and then even shortly after meeting Toru, that was the first time where Ren, seeing other people's responses to him, experienced his own sort of clash with just taking it at face value. Right. And was like, do we actually trust this guy who's talking kind of crazy, this prophet?
Yeah. Do we believe everything?
Yeah. Literally everything.
Well, from there, I mean, you guys captured Soul.
Yeah.
Right. You know,
we cut his Achilles.
Yeah.
Threw him in a back.
I wouldn't say we.
as Estrella.
A little unnecessary. No, she has her reasons.
Did he almost bleed out?
Yeah, he almost died until you had a very clutch moment. Honestly, that was like impressive because not every player would be attentive to that and catch that, but he was bleeding out, and I actually had him like 6 seconds. I was rolling. I had him 6 seconds away from dying.
Yeah.
I normally after sessions usually don't say things like that, but. You know,
it matters.
Far enough away, stuff like that. It's fun to just talk about.
Look back on.
So that was a really cool moment for me. Just like, okay, there's people paying attention. You know.
Yeah. Right.
That was cool. But the next couple sessions kind of blur together, even for me.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, what we did is we traveled back through the valley.
Mm-hmm.
We were looking for the secret pass, and
Which
we
you
were then cued in a little bit into Roland's journey of trying to find his sword.
Yeah.
Right? And trying
And
to find
finding
the
it.
parts of him, you know, that he's missing.
Mm-hmm.
Because there was a bit of dialogue that implied that, you know, the more he finds himself, perhaps the more complete he'll become.
Yeah.
And, like, less broken and that sort of thing.
Yeah. But
Which-
eventually, I mean, once you guys got to Grey Ridge,
Right.
he kind of turned his back on that a little bit.
A little bit, yeah. But I think it was an interesting travel sequence.
Yeah.
Because it really established the characters for what they were gonna be, right?
Yeah.
Because we up until like the end of that first combat and the first real RP session that we had in that, because we got to have, there were a few walk out of the room moments, right? There was a few not walk out of the room moments, but get to observe things, and there was some dialogue, and it really got to establish who the characters were, what they weren't, and what they were going to be, you know? And I think especially with like, you know, it started like, you know, leaning into like, okay, there's these characters like Estrella and Ren and Dean who...
Yeah, they're not going to say as much.
Well, not going to say as much, but they're going to...
But they're
they're
not
going
gonna
to
push
be
there.
a bit more morally light,
Yeah.
right? And like question why we are okay with doing certain things or not doing other things, right? And like Dean isn't quite there, but his character just brings out like a boisterousness.
Yeah.
That
But
kind
those
of
three
implies
characters, none of them ever like were like, we're doing this and we're gonna go do it now. You know, they're very
Right.
much more observers. You know?
Yeah.
Along for the ride.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And then we have Zarena and Kieran, you know, who are these characters, and kind of Roland, who are these characters who are quiet, decisive in their own character ways, right? And like, the party may be doing this, but I'm going to do this, right?
Roland especially with that, yeah.
Right. And Zarena. And then you have people like Andrus and Levi, and kind of Kieran as well, who are observers, but also in a controlling, like, directional way.
Yeah, they want to, in a way, you know, manipulate where things are going. And because they have their own, you know, motives.
They have their agendas, but they also, I think, at least for Andrus's perspective, he has experience, and he has he's got an intelligence score, you know, which isn't a common thing unless you play a wizard. Because of how D&D did their stats, you know? And that's one thing that I've been trying to really take into account, because I usually play charisma-based characters. And it's been an interesting place as a player to try to lean away from doing the social things and like making the smart social decisions.
And do more of the smart plans.
The smart planning and the smart observing of what's going on.
And I think Ren picked that up about you pretty quickly too, because I think anytime there was any conversation, which ironically happened several times about who's going to be our leader, Ren was always like, Andrus looks like a very good candidate. He seems to be a thinker and be able to plan these things. But I don't think we ever actually settled on a leader.
I don't think anyone in our group wants that as a character.
Yeah. So far, up till at least in the session 12 chunk, no one has.
Right.
No one stepped up to the plate.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the party, that was a good travel sequence to kind of flesh out, okay, what's the dynamic of everyone.
And horses can jump into water.
And horses can jump into water.
That's huge.
They can also die. And then you get to Grey Ridge. And
still too soon.
That was kind of just a fun moment to kind of refresh.
To where? Sorry.
Once you guys got to Grey Ridge.
Sorry, I thought you said the carriage, and I was like,
where did we go to the carriage? No, but then you guys pretty quickly moved on, moved past that region.
We got our drift.
We ran into Sir Roger.
You did, yeah.
And notably,
that's
where Roland left the ring, right?
Yep.
Which
was a lot of people didn't like, you know.
Right.
And then you guys traveled north.
Yeah.
I think, honestly, I said I knew all the sessions well, but they're all kind of blending together.
They do blend. I will say, before we move past like that point in time, I think it's important to kind of acknowledge, for the sake of like figuring out where the party's at here, what happened with Sir Roger. Like, we're here after, you know, getting what we were told is, you know, notorious slavers and bringing them to justice.
And after doing your first job together.
Together. And pretty quickly, we're told, hey, there is a group of bandits. And we are told Rygian bandits, right? You know, these natives who are not, that's the conflict of the world that we haven't really delved into too much, but it's like,
they want their land, they're willing to do whatever.
Kind of the colonization of Illyria, right? Like, what side are you going to take with that?
Yeah.
And we just went out there and absolutely murked them.
We cooked them.
Like,
you guys did not hesitate. You guys murdered them.
We didn't ask questions.
Right, and
questions.
I think that, and this is me knowing, I thought through the thought process for Andrus, and that was an okay decision for him. But
it made sense,
I think that there is some thinking that needs to be done for some of the other characters.
Oh, absolutely.
That we haven't touched on yet.
No.
That's like, why were you okay doing that? You know, like.
But if you notice, I mean, there was definitely already backlash immediately with that. I mean, with what happened when you guys were leaving Grey Ridge.
Right.
You guys saw, maybe our actions have consequences.
Yeah.
With what happened to that.
Well, I mean, even
With
young man.
Shajan.
Yeah.
Leaving that, I mean, Ren even asked Estrella, like, why is it okay to kill these people and not these people? And that was honestly a core memory, because Estrella was a person that Ren trusts.
Right.
And Estrella was like, oh, well, it's okay to kill bad people. And then it was like, Ren's like, oh, cool, it's okay to kill bad people, I guess.
And we get to decide who the bad people are.
Yeah, because that's subjective
And
perspective.
We're the arbiters of that, so.
Which is a great way to live life,
Right.
Yeah.
Maybe on the road you have to live like that.
14-year-old murder hobo bird.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow, the refresh right there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, after that, I mean, we're about to get into the real thick of things. As you guys traveled south, you passed, some military. And I think that a really good portion for the party was right before you guys went to that fortress.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
When you guys had that
At the
sequence at the lake. Yep.
It was a really nice.
Hoshek Lake, I think it was.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That was just cool.
It was fun.
To explore just like some dynamics. I think it was still uncomfortable. The party wasn't a group.
Well, there was
really.
more. I mean, example A. Like with the two characters that are not currently with the party in present day. Like, we had some really good moments with Ren and Roland as a story, right? But wasn't necessarily great, for the party, right?
Yeah.
Like, Roland had a spat, pretty in that time, and then we'll come to it in a little bit, a bit more intense one later.
Mm-hmm.
But like, I really think that was a very pivotal time for the characters and the players of like, what is this story gonna turn into?
I think specifically in that moment too, with Roland, not to like beat a dead horse. Pun was not intended.
Sure, yeah.
But in that point, in the point in the story, you're getting to a point where people are deciding, is this a coincidence that we're getting these behaviors multiple times, or is this the character of this person?
Yeah.
Is this development?
We're getting to that point, which I think later becomes solidified most people's opinions, but where especially Ren and a lot of people are deciding, is this a bad guy or has he just done some bad things?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that part was fun. Who wants to talk about what happened right after that?
Should I talk about
I don't think you should talk about it. I think there's too much in it.
Should I talk about it?
I will open up what happened and then maybe allow, leave it for you guys to fill in the details, but.
Speaking of, real quick, I think that is the best part to go back and rewatch. I would say those couple sessions. I want to say
what would that be?
8 and no, it's after that.
7 through 10.
Probably
somewhere in there.
I want to say it's
2 sessions.
Collapsible Fortress.
The session before it.
The session before Collapsible Fortress.
Yeah.
Those are the two.
I think that's 8 and 9.
Yeah. I want to say 10 is Collapsible Fortress.
Also, Collapsible Fortress, dub of a name.
Thank you.
Great session there.
Yeah.
Well, we're not there yet. But I mean, we get while we're at the lake, I think is what happened. Oh no, it was before the lake.
Mm-hmm.
It was in Grey Ridge. A person reaches out to Levi and is like, "Hey, I have a lead for you at this location," which is what motivates all us to go. Of course, Levi being Levi just tells us that there's a lead and doesn't tell us what
doesn't
it
give
is.
you any details.
Which sets up a lot of conflict later on because had he had that conversation with a select few of us, that might have turned things differently.
Yeah, he might not have wanted to.
We might not have gone, but we reached this location which ends up being a connection in ways to Levi and to Andrus with this Tathu clan, which is probably going to be a factor and a faction that we're going to see a handful of.
Yeah, which reminds me, the session An Enemy Named.
Pretty
well named.
Yeah.
Is 7, so you were right. It's 7 and 8.
Gotcha.
Maybe I don't know the sessions as well as I thought.
Well, you named Collapsible Fortress the session following the major events of that because it was the end, the beginning of So yeah, but we reach this place and Andrus is made aware of, oh, who are we dealing with? And once he comes up with that, there is a big break in his mind of fear and PTSD, and that reflects. And I think I'll just see what Ren thought of.
I think it's important to point out where we were when that revelation happened, because we were
200 feet.
We were actively sneaking up to the gate, and a plan had been made between Ren and whoever he was speaking with. Where we had a plan. Ren was going to wild shape and sneak in. We were going to look around. Basically, Ren turns around and is like, "We're good to go. We're good to go." And then you're like, you ask Levi, like, you know, what are these people actually? And he says Tathu clan, and we see that snap, and you, if I remember correctly, you just book it. You leave completely. Estrella follows.
Everything pretty much the plan collapsed.
You mentioned, much like the fortress, you mentioned that this is like bad. We shouldn't be here. We need to go. And then
even warn the party
before in a very broken, undetailed way.
And before having any conversation about it, then you exit the scene.
Right.
Later, we know God knows what happens to you. But
if you watch it, you do.
But
you should.
I haven't. But after that, we get this sort of torn dynamic where we go, okay, well, do we continue without him or do we turn back? And Ren generally is like, I think we should, push pause and then resume. There's no reason we need to do this right now.
Yeah.
But the general consensus is we're just gonna send it. And so Ren just sends it. I wild shape to get in there. I try to impress the people and do what I can to learn. And I think that everybody is still worried for Andrus, but we're in this instance where actions have been taken after that, and we feel like we're locked in and we have to go.
Yeah.
And then everything goes to crap after that.
Everything falls apart.
Everything falls apart.
Or we can start.
I did want to ask a few things with that. So with Ren running off and doing the thing that the plan was, right?
Yeah.
And obviously once I played out that mental break, I just took a backseat for the rest of that session for the most part because
the next couple sessions.
Yeah, and the next session.
That's true actually.
Yeah.
So I'm curious actually because I've talked a lot with the players. I want to know a little bit about your perspective on how it unfolded with the players because obviously you have top down, right?
Yeah.
But as being at the table and watching it all happen and stuff like that, what was going through your mind and specifically with how people were acting in and out of character and stuff like that.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, without revealing too much,
sure.
I was surprised. I was really surprised with pretty much everything. There were some things that weren't surprising. Obviously, how certain people, Andrus, reacted to the initial news, but really seeing in character who is going to stick with the plan, which characters are the ones that they just want to keep going, and they don't really care too much about thinking it ahead. They're just nope, we started this, we're gonna finish it. And then also seeing what players, they just want to go into combat, or maybe they just want to have they just want to see what's gonna have fun. And some people made their character with that in mind. They're I want to make a character where I don't actually have to think about too much. I can just be I want to have the next combat. Maybe he's thinking about too much.
I mean, he's a kid.
Yeah, and it made a lot of sense. I think all of the honestly, I think all of the characters did what their characters are doing.
I'd say from my experience with the characters of what I've been shown, the only people looking back on that sequence that I would would have been in a way Roland. I don't really know, just because I don't know what his mind truly is
with going into the fortress or
with
after that.
His decisions about this is the new information we have on the combat we're going into. Should we reassess? Right?
Well, he was hungry.
Right, he was hungry, but him and Kieran, because I know that Kieran is an old man, which I don't. Do they find that out by session 12? I think so. Yeah, and so he's an old man. He's got a lot of experience in the military. Right. And so it's surprising to me thinking back on it and be you were one of the people who says, let's just keep going.
Yeah.
And I was maybe that's his character in that regard.
Yeah.
But from what he told us and what we've gotten to observe about who and what has defined him, especially as, what he came from before he was
it
mortal.
lets you think about like, okay, I wonder why, like I wonder what I have to know about these characters
to understand the decisions.
Yeah, and from a top down perspective, I can be like, okay, I can see this, I can see this.
Yeah.
And it makes, honestly, knowing a whole character's backstory, it makes it a lot easier, and this is just in general, to understand why people are doing things and just justify it all. It's like, okay, this is makes sense. And only every once in a while is there a time when I'm just like sitting there as the DM and I'm like, okay, that doesn't make any sense. Like, I can't figure out. Maybe I missed something.
I want to hear these examples.
That's off the air. That's off the air.
There's only a few
times. Tune into our Patreon.
Yeah. There's only a few times where I've been like, okay, man, I'm trying to remember, why would they do this?
Right.
Why?
But I think there hasn't, honestly, I think from a DM perspective, character-wise, there's been a lot of really good consistency with all the characters.
I have to know. You don't have to say what it is, but have you had a moment like that with Andrus? I have to know.
Not really. No, I don't think so.
W.
I don't think so.
W. Yeah. I don't think you would have had a moment like that with Ren, because Ren is a blank canvas.
Blank slate.
Yeah. I mean, Ren was opinionated at times.
Yeah,
where
that's
I was like, I wonder where Ren is getting his, like, confidence in some of his decisions.
Vibes.
But, I mean, he's, when you're like, I mean, imagine a baby that just can already talk and, like, do things.
Right.
It's going to be kind of
swing weeks old.
Yeah. So I wasn't putting a lot of weight to Ren's decisions. And
I think a lot of Ren, too, like, even that decision specifically came down to kind of peer pressure.
Yeah.
Like, because Ren didn't want to go in, but there were people that are like, we need to go in, and he was just like, okay, I guess we go.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that whole sequence was super fun.
Getting tortured with Levi. Well, not tortured, but getting imprisoned with Levi.
Yeah.
That was fun.
That was fun. Escaping, getting out of there, meeting a new friend.
On new horses.
Oh, getting new horses.
We can't brush over the horses.
We can't.
I don't think.
I don't want to talk for an hour about the horses.
We won't talk.
It's pivotal, though.
I think we need to talk about.
I want to hear
Ren experience with the horses.
Well, that was something that you decided was important to Ren.
It made sense. Really important.
To be fair, it was the first thing Ren had ever spent money on was a horse.
Yeah.
And so his first purchase ever, he named the horse. He was proud of the horse. He was gonna race with his horse, everything. And he's a kid. It's like it's his pet.
Yeah.
And then he gets back and his pet's cooked.
You buy your first Lego set.
Yeah.
You build it.
And this one
puts it down a garbage disposal.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. And I mean, Ren had the power at his disposal to just talk to other horses, and there was one that was clearly alive. So he was like, "We're gonna get to the bottom of this."
Yeah, I actually went back and I think I've watched that conversation twice.
Yeah.
This conversation with Creed and Ren. That was a great sequence.
Yeah.
That was actually, honestly, like, as a DM, saying that a Speak with Animal sequence is one of your favorites is crazy. Because I dread Speak with Animals. I'm always like...
Speak with animals, speak with plants.
Yeah, I'm always
sometimes
like,
speak with dead. You're like oh
why?
my gosh.
I don't want to have to know all this. Or, like, do all this. But that one was, like, it was great. It was actually great. Because there was a little bit of comedy, but there was a lot of emotion. And everyone could tell, like, oh, shoot.
Yeah.
Now we actually know. I mean, we do. Yeah, I mean, unless there's more to talk about with the horses dying.
Well, that's when Roland attacked.
I was gonna say that's when Roland lashed out. That's what that led to.
That next session after you
the
asked
morning after.
In West End Bound episode or session 9.
Yeah, because Ren approached Roland and was basically like trying to say, if you do anything, I'll do something about it. It's not going to work out.
Yeah.
And Ren knew he couldn't take Roland, but Ren was more the type to say, I'm going to at least die trying.
Yeah.
And that
got a little scar.
Yeah, got a little boo-boo.
I remember like that scene so vividly because as a player I'm sitting there just like, because there's certain things player DM mind you're like taking into account of things, and I remember specifically, you know, Kenny saying like, I'm gonna swing at Ren, and you're like, all right, make an attack roll, and Kenny missed, right?
Yeah.
And then you're like, and you like nick, you know, part of Ren's set. I'm sitting here, I'm like, that wasn't. And then when he describes it to us later, he's like, "Oh, I was flailing about and just accidentally hit him."
I mean, he also has the nick property, doesn't he? With the greatsword?
No, the greatsword has the
graze, which would have done that.
Right. But like, I don't think we were talking about that mechanically in the moment. But like, all that to say is like, I was just saying, I'm like, I feel like I was one of the few people who aware in the moment of like, that was an intentional, like, that was a lethal attack.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like. And we learned that about Roland later on, which we can get to.
Yeah.
But Roland wasn't trying to nick Ren.
No, he was trying to like cook him.
Yeah. I have to remember.
Ren.
That's
crazy.
I have to say this just because I was proud of. I got some zesty one-liners off there. I
Oh,
remember
you
just
did.
dropping some roasts as Ren.
No, there was too many one-liners there.
I was like, Ren's not that charismatic. I gotta stop.
That was fun.
No, yeah.
All right, well,
West End Bound.
West End Bound. That's where that happened. That's where that some of you, mainly Levi leading it, really interrogated your new friend. That was fun, but we won't get too much into Arnold.
Arnold.
Oh man, that was a terrible interrogation.
That was horrible.
That was really fun for me.
It was no, it was a really fun interrogation.
But it was terrible. Yeah.
It's awful.
But you guys ended up getting to West End. I think actually most of that may have happened, or no, what we were all just talked about, I believe actually might have happened in Collapsible Fortress, and then the interrogation was the start of.
I know
West
a session started with talking to the horse, talking to Creed.
Then that's probably
because I remember messaging you and be like, "Do you actually want to RP this, or do you want me to just say that we did it?" And you were like, "Oh, we'll do it.
We'll do it.
We needed to RP that."
Yeah. I'm glad we did.
Yeah, and then you guys get to West End in West End Bound. Hopefully, I mean that'd be weird if you didn't.
Right.
I think you did, but that was fun for me because we were finally kind of out of that
The trees.
out of the trees, out of that first part, and I knew where you guys were headed. But you guys got your first chance to kind of just have a pretty free conversation with a new entity, as in the Jade Bandits.
Right.
Yeah.
A completely new group where your reputation was okay, what's it gonna be?
It's so funny that whole sequence going up to it because we're
gosh.
tentatively walking down the road.
Dude,
and
I made
a zombie
to
walk.
You guys trying to get you guys. I felt like I was poking a little kid trying to get him to go towards a certain direction.
And Roland's we're walking.
Yeah.
I'm going.
Yeah, he just walked in and I was like, please, it would be so aura if you guys all entered the tavern at once.
Oh,
But no.
No.
But sometimes as a DM, you write something out like you're writing a book, but then you have to remember, no,
we're
all
afraid of
writing.
you.
It was a scary setting. There was
there was
nobody
nobody
there.
about. It made sense.
Well,
to
there
be
was a dead
afraid.
body too, wasn't there?
There was a dead body.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why people were going up into houses, who knows?
Who knows?
Yeah.
But it was fun regardless. Once you guys got there, once everything loosened up, you guys got a quest.
We met a big personality.
We met a very big.
We met a really awesome
Hugo.
person.
Yeah.
Most of the time I'm not supposed to say what NPCs I have more liking towards.
But
Hugo's
Hugo's
one of
He
them.
was good.
He was super fun.
Yeah.
But he also,
He's up there with Dirty Sam.
he meshed really well with the party.
Yeah.
You guys got along well with him.
Yeah.
And there hasn't been a lot of NPCs like that that just get along with the whole party.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of the world that I'm making. I'm putting a lot of effort into making NPCs have a personality.
Yeah.
Where all of them feel like
Have a perspective.
yeah, they have a perspective. They might just not like you guys. They might be sassy to you guys. Some of them might just be really interested and
Hugo
entertained.
approves.
Yeah, exactly. But not much happened there.
Yeah.
You guys ended up heading out, and that's
We ended up talking about potential rewards.
Yeah.
Yep.
Levi
was kind of
tried
a
to
big
fight
thing.
somebody.
Yeah,
Did
it
fight
went well.
somebody. It went well.
Yeah.
And we had a little. At least Anderson Hugo had a little moment talking about Roland.
Yeah.
And then we left.
Yeah.
You guys left.
That's Troll Patrol then,
Yeah,
right?
it is.
Yeah.
That's the session. That you
I
were
was
there.
horribly sick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How was that session for you?
Best session. No.
No, that was horrible.
No.
Yeah. Well, it wasn't the most action-packed session, other than the trolls. But that was That was, funnily enough. Wait, I missed these. We can cut that out.
No.
No, that stays.
Well, funnily enough, that actually was CR accurate, so that's why, as a DM, you don't always make the encounters CR accurate. That's just a little tip for you. If you have players that are all metagame.
I mean, think about it. CR accurate. We could. Was it a round and a half?
Yeah, it wasn't even 2 rounds.
I watched it and I was like, oh, that was fast.
Yeah.
Yeah, so note to all you DMs out there: if you have new players, sure, CR is helpful. If your players have been playing for any serious amount of time, just throw away the whole CR.
Yeah.
And if you have
It hurts.
players that you've played through a game with before.
Yeah. When you're looking
Just
at monsters,
double the CR score, honestly.
I mean,
triple it.
Yeah.
might I add triple it?
I mean,
if you're playing with twice the people, even then I didn't,
Right.
I did take that into account when, figuring it out. And maybe I was maybe I don't know how to use CR.
I mean,
Maybe
that's the thing though. It's like CR it does take into account different factors and how they affect the thing.
Yeah.
But like the numbers of economy in D&D make so much of a difference. And like even at the end of Promosa, it's like I gave you guys a CR 47 encounter. But because it was a single guy with a bunch of shadow minions and then a phase 2 of him with one dragon, it was like
cooked.
And everyone in the party, well, almost everyone, was to a certain extent, some more than others, a little min-maxed. You know?
Yeah.
But that's
Draven
a fun way to
didn't
make
even
characters.
attack the second form.
Yeah.
That's a different conversation.
Anyways,
CR
all
is
that
crazy.
to say, CR is a crazy thing. Don't let it be your science when you're planning things. But
just add 10.
oh yeah, always add 10. That's a good rule of thumb.
My level 1 party die.
Yeah. And that's a good point. You know, it scales with 1 through 4.
Yeah.
Like there's a leniency there. But once they
With
have
a 4-person
once
party.
they have extra attack or level 3 spells,
Mhm.
you're
The next 2 sessions are A Broken Promise and Birdie and the Beast. I like both of these sessions.
Can I really quickly tag to the end of
Yes.
Patrol? I think that was one of my favorite sessions. Specifically, well, yeah, because you know,
Also, you played Ren beautifully.
very good. And when I say favorite sessions, that's not true, but like moment wise,
Yeah.
I really liked, and it was so devastating going to because then I was absent the next session, but
It was,
Roland and Andrus got to have a conversation
Yep.
that opened up the door to bringing Roland back into the inner circle of the party.
yeah.
And he was open to it, and we were literally walking, like getting up to start walking towards the group to have that conversation, and then we got to be interrupted, which wasn't a bad interruption. It was a really
Yeah,
it was a really good story driven interruption. I liked it.
It was
But
perfect.
like moving into was it session 10?
The next session was session 11.
Session
where you
11.
weren't there.
Moving into session 11, it's like, okay, we established, Andrus being a non-emotionally intelligent character, observes through his intelligence what's going on with Roland and is able to piece together, like, if he read about the emotions, he was able to piece it together and figure out what was going on. I think Andrus is the only one who did that.
Yeah.
Maybe Levi to a degree, but...
Yeah, but most people didn't really care too much about the emotions of everyone in the party. They're more thinking about their character, what they think.
Right.
Actions and consequences.
But I'm specifically talking about for understanding Roland. Because Andrus was a person who's like, Roland is a fascinating person. He is a useful person.
Yeah.
But he is a thorn in our side. So how do we fix the thorn?
And almost a distraction from like what you're trying to get done. what you're
Right.
trying to accomplish.
Exactly. And so getting to open that door, and then Dean and I took a step away because we had a pretty cool concert we went to.
But that opened the door for even more fun.
That did open the door for more fun. And when we came back, it was a mess. But the session I was gone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Session you were gone. I mean,
We met Dirty Sam for one.
That was an amazing thing to watch back.
Yeah.
Dude, Dirty Sam.
Dirty Sam. I won't do his voice here, but it's a great voice.
Best NPC.
You have to watch it. For that.
Yeah, you do have to go back. Maybe we'll upload a compilation at some point.
Yeah.
Maybe if we get some more clips.
Yeah, exactly. Once we get to like 5 interactions with him, if he lives that long,
He better.
we'll get a little compilation.
But yeah, session 11 was pretty crazy, kind of, because I mean, we found the sick tavern and everybody just kind of gets in their spot. I forget, was session 11, that was when Roland went off with Arnold? Or was that the end of session...
Arnold was still there.
Was that the end of session 10 where that happened?
No, so you guys, there was a little bit of a time skip in between session 10, session 11, where you guys were traveling on boat.
Okay.
There was quite a few days.
Okay, that's right.
And then you guys ended up at the very beginning of session 11 entering High Wall, Harbinger's Hearth. You're all there.
Meeting
enjoying your
everybody.
time, meeting everyone.
Yeah.
You guys all go to sleep.
Yep.
2 people get kidnapped. The 2 people are missing.
3 technically if you count Arnold.
That's true.
Oh, true.
And then, Roland went off. Levi was like, I mean, this was my favorite.
Yeah.
One of my favorite moments so far, where he had Almond make a promise to him that he wouldn't die.
Yeah. Presumably made in jest, but...
Yeah, and knowing as the DM what I've been planning for this character, it's like, spoiler alert, Almond died.
It did not age well.
They came there the next morning to check up on him because they needed to talk to him. He had a lot of answers for them. A lot of the things, the previous couple sessions, he'd be like, oh, I have something to tell you guys. I can give you information on that. We just have to get to my office,
Yeah.
my house, so I can really like debrief you guys and I can recollect myself because he had been in the prison or in that jail cell.
With the party, I'm sure that they use Speak with Dead on his body.
Obviously, because that's how you get answers.
Right.
Because we have Speak with. That's what we would do.
That's
what any smart party would do.
Instead, they use their investigation tactics, and they may or may not have figured out what happened.
Yeah. Maybe.
But you can go watch that exact part back because that's worth watching.
I can't.
I guess you can.
We pretty quickly jumped to the conclusion that it was the Duskblades that had kidnapped everybody.
Yeah, thanks to the help of Dirty Sam.
But I think the general party as a whole, and I'm not sure why, but as a whole, concluded that the Duskblades also killed Alman. And so there was kind of this vendetta-fueled rush to get to the Duskblades, which, we were along for the ride. That's what everybody seemed to jump to.
Everyone was like, okay, let's just go.
Yeah.
Let's figure this out.
Yeah.
You went, and it didn't go as planned.
I think you see an especially a sort of almost panicky side from Estrella, where she's normally a bit more, let's take things calmly and approach it. But then, when you see Andrus is gone, she's like, we got to get there. He could be dying. So
I really like how that was like kind of sprinkled throughout, like the first 10 episodes, and then now into episode 11 with just like the unveiling of what the bond between Estrella and Andrus is versus what it looks like, and like getting to see that like attachment that is like a like safety thing,
a comfort,
which made that session happen really, like the rush to like figure everything out and find Andrus. It made that session a lot more real and realistic, really.
It also made us stumble into some unfortunate places.
It made the weird session that session 12 was.
That was
happen,
a crazy session.
Which was, honestly, it was really dependent on how you guys acted in session 11.
Yeah.
How you guys reacted determined where you guys would go from there. And it just so happened, something that I mean, as of right now, if you guys were watching, even you wouldn't even know really what that was. And as players, you guys really don't have any information onto what that was, other than what you talked to.
I don't even know what you're talking about at this point.
Session 12.
Yeah.
You mean the arena?
Yeah.
I feel like as a party at large, all of our characters
you're so confused.
are way too willing to just accept what we don't know and not dig into it. Like, as a party, we're like, there's this crazy teleporting door, and these people kidnapped our friends, and we just walked in, and there's this arena with a light that came from who knows where, and other things. And it's fine. We don't need to know anything about it.
And I mean, at that point, you guys really couldn't figure out. You just had to survive, which was kind of a rare moment in the campaign because most of the decisions haven't been made out of
survival instinct.
Yeah,
it's been made out of like, okay, what's our next step? But this was kind of just like, we gotta team up and survive. You know,
part of, I liked the opportunity to like delve into that in that arena because like there was a bit of like. And just throwing reason to the wind and just picking up a piece of wood and just going for it, you know?
Yeah, and some people were calm in the face of all of this, and some people were, emotionally reactive, which made sense.
What was that like for both Zach as a player and Andrus, coming up those steps?
And seeing Ren.
Yeah.
It was for Zach as a player, like, oh no moment.
Yeah.
Because Zach as a DM understands that sort of intro and knew what was going on.
Yeah.
However, it was also I kind of see this coming sort of thing. Because for a few sessions at that point, I had kind of watched how you were playing Ren and wasn't like, oh, you don't like playing Ren.
Yeah.
But I was like, Ren is not going to find a place in this party if he wants to pursue his journey.
Yeah.
And I expected Ren to then go off and be a forager and like a wanderer, and we might run into him in 35 sessions.
But why would I do that?
But why would you do that?
Why would we do that?
And really that just goes to show how it's kind of hard to start a campaign with having eight players. And make sure all of the characters really fit together, and that's all I'll say about that.
Yeah, I mean, you also the players can give you a document with a backstory.
Yeah.
But we don't even know how we're gonna play the characters.
Exactly.
You know.
And once you start playing a character, that's when you start realizing who the character is.
And so for Andrus in that moment, Andrus was in a place where like, and this was I think fairly observed throughout the entire journey, and like kind of talked about because I think I at one point said I don't care about you guys. Like Andrus was like he's here because it works and because there is a reason that this is functioning.
Yeah.
But he wouldn't endanger himself for everyone else aside from Estrella.
Yeah.
And I think in that moment, like Andrus had been like slowly like connecting with individuals.
Yeah.
And starting to like be like, okay, this is how parties are, and do I want this party?
Yeah.
Like, do I want the
do
party?
I want to be like this?
Yeah.
Because he understands the party dynamic. He's been through many, as one of the people who isn't a teenager, and he at that moment was feeling the frustration of this is what happens when you allow that connection to happen again.
Yeah.
You
He
know?
was feeling like the kind of whiplash of that.
The
like,
whiplash of like the reason you do this on your own or with a minimal amount of people is because you can control and protect it.
Yeah.
Because
there's a bunch of
Andrus
people.
is, pun intended, a controller.
Yeah.
You know, mechanically and like how he thinks is like, if I can control what's going on, I can protect.
Yep.
If I can control what's going on, I can predict. You know, and again, pun intended, like with time and all that, it's like that's his thing. But inside of that, there's a lot to unpack that the party hasn't unpacked yet on why he's that way.
Yeah.
And
so
it was a really interesting moment because it's like, I kind of was like, yeah, he's going to be sad about this, but he's also not going to like, he's also a functional human, like functional man.
Yeah. And a functional warrior.
Yeah, functional warrior. So he's not going to break down. He's not going to like fall apart. And for 2 to 3 sessions after that, he's going to keep going and keep going.
Yeah.
And this goes past what we're recapping, but eventually he lets that kind of settle and feels the heaviness of what happened.
Yeah, which is pretty realistic, I would say.
Yeah.
I mean, just how it all happens. Yeah, well, I mean, that's really well said and also a good way to kind of conclude at least that portion of the recap. Although I do want to say, I mean, session 12, that's where Ren gets torched.
Yeah. If you haven't seen it, he gets royally cooked. Nothing but a feather.
Fried chicken.
Yeah.
And
By
there's
Lightbone, which is, I mean, a
That was
sacrifice to
that was
Lightbone.
an incredibly complicated like social thing to
and
insight.
it has not concluded.
Especially for Andrus, honestly, because it's like you've got this connection.
And like that's the whole thing. Is like not even just that, but like Andrus does not like divinity. Period. Like session 0. Like Andrus does not like divinity. Backstory. Andrus does not like divinity.
Every time it's mentioned.
And like it's a weird dynamic with the fact that he like has this like relationship with Estrella of like companionship, and she is a cleric, and like he's talked about it in character, and we've talked about it above the table on stream, but like Andrus has a cleric level, and so it's like there is
I totally
that
forgot about.
conflict.
I mean, I didn't forget about it completely, but I forgot about it in this context.
Yeah, and so it's like divinity is already like part of the reason Andrus started bonding with Kieran early on, right? Because they talked about that, and then adding the Lipa thing into conflict with what's going on there, making Lipa the patron of the person that Andrus trusts the most in the circle, and then on top of that, making it a god's fault that the party's falling apart. It's just like
it's a mess.
It's a mess. It is.
And there's more messes than that. And honestly, I think the next couple sessions after this recap have already started to kind of show and bring to light those messes. But I think in the next couple sessions we'll see if maybe the party gets a chance to figure that out. I'm excited.
And you meet Valerius.
How was it walking into a new character without social introduction is the word I'm looking for.
In combat.
Yeah.
It was so.
So I've never done that. Like
Valerius specifically, he's got such a dichotomy to his existence and being. Yeah. I expected when I was considering him as a character, he was going to let people's first impression of him be his words and his personality, not this monstrous form that you see of him, this visceral, disgusting form. But so jumping straight in as that, it was crazy. So I mean,
you're welcome.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
I was really in that moment. I was like, how am I gonna recover from this socially to the point where the party will trust me? It helps that you guys had Roland traveling with you for a significant amount of time.
It also helps that you helped the party survive.
Yeah,
and we're at a
quite
point in the
functionally.
in the Yeah.
Levi is the only
I
one
think
who's
that,
been,
and that's the funniest part about that whole situation.
Yeah.
I mean, like, Levi is the most, like, oh, accept them for who they are, person in our party. But when it comes to the scary monster, he's like,
hey, get out of here.
Yeah.
It's Levi is such a conundrum.
We love Levi though.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's sessions
Yeah.
1 through 12.
Yeah.
I think I have 2 more little segments
Okay.
for you guys.
Of course.
But yeah, I think I'm excited. If this was your, just your recap and you've watched a little bit of it, so basically if you're Frank, or if you are just trying to watch so that you can get caught up so that you can join in the next couple sessions, glad you watched it. Then it gets better even more from here. So the story is...
I think we did a pretty good
This
job.
is a strong foundation
I
to
think
jump
That was
in.
a really good...
Yes. I think we were clear with this is what has happened and really diving into details without taking too long.
Yeah.
The next couple segments are fun. The first one, I want you guys to make predictions about the story so that we can revisit. This might age poorly.
That's tough.
I know.
That's
so
tough.
And the funny thing about it, I'm not going to give you guidelines for your predictions.
Can I have a really hot take prediction that's not like for the story but for a character's story, one of our players?
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that okay?
Yeah, do it. And
Which is
I'm not going to react.
a character we haven't talked about at all. Yavik is a spy for the Jade Bandits.
You're not the only one who thinks that. I don't
know,
think.
because I gave that idea to Silas. I
Okay.
talked to him about it. He believes
Yeah.
it because of me. Yavik is a spy for the Jade Bandits in the Empire because
And you say and the Empire?
No, in the
In the
Empire.
Empire.
Okay.
Because he's got this father figure in Hugo.
Right.
Right?
Right.
But also
the Jade Bandit.
Hugo dislikes the Empire and like wants them to go to war, but Yavik has this, fondness of the Empire, so it would seem, and he's at the spot where he gets the most information, he talks to the most people. So
And on top of that, he also was in the heist, which is future information for you guys.
Yeah.
But quite quickly, Hugo reaches out to Andrus without, obviously there could be people in the shadows.
Yeah.
There could be other observers.
There
There
could
could
be
be
news, I mean-
there could be the
Yeah,
Hall
and knowing
of
that Yavik has
memories.
capabilities to
Yeah.
send messages.
Yeah.
Yeah.
right, but top down, Yavik is a prime suspect for that.
Oh, for
For
sure.
sure.
Also,
I
he
totally
doesn't
agree.
want
I didn't
to
know
be
that was
seen.
on the party's radar as far as a...
I feel
I think it's only on me, Silas, and Aaron's radar.
and I gave it to Silas.
Yeah.
Because me and Silas were driving to literally the last session, and I was like, "Hear me out." And he was like, "What?" And I was like, "Yavik's a spy." And he was like, "What do you mean?" And I just gave like my case, and he was like, "Bro, Yavik's a spy." And I was like, "I
That's
know."
a really good maybe hot take prediction.
Yeah, we'll
wanna
see
go.
how that unfolds.
That's
story
funny to me.
predictions, it's tough because it's like
Yeah, let's try to do 5.
5 story predictions. Okay, are you
Okay.
talking? Not you're obviously you just said you're not going to give any parameters. Are you asking like grand story prediction? Are you asking
If
like
you guys
immediately-
want to go grand
immediate
prediction,
arc?
that
We're
gives
gonna save the world.
Honestly, it's more of like a however much you want to try to predict. That's how much glory you will get for being right. I mean,
That's
if you
fair.
go with a grand story
fair.
prediction, it'll be awesome when you're right. If you go for like a couple sessions from now, it'll be like, oh, that's cool.
For sure.
So it's up to you.
I'm not going to try to like dump my character's backstory into the mix, but I was not expecting the Tothu clan to be introduced so early.
Yeah.
That was not something that
that
Zach
took you by
thought was
surprise.
going to be in. You can see it on my face when
Yeah,
you watch that session.
you can.
I was
It's like-
shook it.
We
to my
felt
core.
it in the room.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was a there was
Yeah,
definitely
and
a
so
feeling.
it makes me think because Jack is the way he is, and Jack likes to leave fake breadcrumbs for his players over and under the table, and so like
I do.
yeah, and so it makes me think because I was told that this is a niche background group of people that like could connect to your backstory because I was like. I'm notorious for making my own factions and doing all that.
Yeah.
And with this backstory, I was like, I'm going to do some of that, but I want to try to give you something to hook into the world.
Yeah.
And you're like, here's like a very unknown, nondescript like clan, that could like be like the thing that like is in your story. And I was like, that sounds great. And we talked to different NPCs and stuff like that. Like, they're the worst. Have you heard? Like, no one knows the rumors, but like, they're the worst. I'm like, okay, this is a lot bigger than I thought it was.
Hold on. So what's your prediction?
My prediction is the Tothu clan are a like sub boss / act 2 villain. Like large story villain tied into your like storyline beyond just Andrus's and potentially Levi's story. That's my prediction, and I'm terrified of it. I also think that we're gonna have a villain arc for Dean.
A villain arc for Dean.
Really?
I think that.
I mean, he's going. Prediction.
Sorry.
No,
This
I
is
like
what
it.
I'm thinking about.
This is why I wanted to.
Dean, and I was talking with Danny and Rachel about this, or was it just Danny? I was talking with Danny about this, and Dean has created this such forward, boisterous character who is almost a little bit ignorant because he talks about just move on from your pain and laugh it off and stuff like that, which is really
especially with
Ren, which is the person he was most connected with comparatively to the rest of the party. Mm-hmm. And it makes me think, okay, he's a denial character. He denies what exists, or he is oblivious to it until it actually hits him. We're learning that he's got trauma from his family, he's got trauma from his people, he has a deity that he thinks he serves, but the deity has fallen short for him multiple times. Yeah. He has this unknown patron that gives Sukuna vibes. Sorry, it does. It's super sick. You quite literally...
Is that Jujutsu Kaisen?
Yeah, Jujutsu Kaisen,
that makes
teeth
sense. There's
in the body.
Body parts.
But it kind of gives that sort of energy, and I predict that there's going to be a clash with those patrons, and I predict that is going to manifest with Dean, not necessarily turning to an evil character that we fight.
But a different version of Dean.
But a different version of Dean that has the potential to walk away from the party and become a DNPC.
Up until then, I was like, I don't even know if that's really a hot take.
Mm-hmm. No.
But I mean, especially with the end, what you're saying is he will completely change and he will no longer be Dean.
I think so.
He will just become.
And if I want to put on a hot take, I'll put a hot take. My hot take is that we will lose Dean and have to fight him. I'll make that a hot take.
Okay.
Wow, that's
so far.
But that's Act 3, I think.
You are saying Yavik is a spy for the Jade Bandits in the Empire.
Yeah.
Your first one is the Tathu clan will be an Act 2 boss, pretty much.
Right.
And
I think they're going to be the stepping stone to whatever the big event is going to be.
And then the third prediction you guys have is that Dean will be someone you have to fight.
Yes.
I'll stay on that.
I'll stay on that.
I like the hotness of that.
Yeah.
I have a less hot take, but it's very specific.
Oh.
We will see Zarena shoot Roland in the leg again.
Oh. I agree.
That's a prediction. That's like putting a parlay on an exact amount of points.
We're going to fight Roland again. Zarena's going to land a hit, and Rachel's going to be like, I shoot him in the leg.
Do you want to raise your ante to she's going to land the how do you want to do this? And it's going to shoot him in the leg?
Or surprise attack.
She'll land a surprise attack.
Okay.
She'll probably
the first shot. Her first shot will hit him in the leg.
I think the opposite of what you think with the Tathu clan. Oh. I think they may be the big bad. And we're going to fight someone that is our sort of stage 1 villain. And then in the victory of that, assuming we win, we're going to have a sort of collapsing realization that they're the people behind it. Yeah. And that they're the people that were controlling this circumstance that led us here.
Clashing takes.
I don't. One of us will be right. Maybe.
I don't know much about your backstory.
Right.
But I feel like we're going to get to a point where the Tathu clan wants something from you or from Levi. Gotcha. They're going to want something from someone in the party.
Can I ask him a question?
Is it about his character?
It's about my character.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. It's me putting a thing on the line.
Yeah.
What does Aaron as a player think of the integrations of the Tathu into Andrus's backstory and how that might play out? Because you just leaned into it a little bit.
Yeah.
What do you think it's gonna look like?
So you're asking how do I think the Tathu clan is going to be integrated with your story?
Well, how.
Is that?
Do you know what I'm trying to ask right now?
I think so. I think you're. Yeah, I think what is the Tathu clan to Andrus in a way, but
sure, because it's been such a vague experience.
Yeah.
For one, the Tathu are vague, and then Andrus is just a mentally messed up person.
Yeah, so it's hard to read.
I got 2 big things to go off of here.
Okay.
One, there's. Oh wait, am I about to cross campaigns on accident?
Are you?
That would be weird.
I totally am, because Andrus is not looking for a slave ship.
Yes, he is.
He is? That is Andrus?
Yes.
I was thinking the other character.
No, that is him.
So I got 2 things to go off of. You're looking for a ship, a slave ship specifically, and you've got a traumatic response to the Tathu clan. I think the Tathu clan has something to do with you having been on a slave ship at some point.
Okay.
And I think that that's the interaction. probably has something to do with your scars, because you've got a fair amount of scars, if I remember correctly.
This is true.
So, and I'm just counting fingers for no reason at this point. No,
That's one.
yeah. No, that was two.
That's two.
He's mentioned them a couple times and is scared of them, and there's a slave ship.
The two things he has to go off.
Oh, I see.
To build off of.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think that, but I think what maybe even Andrus may not know,
Mm.
which I don't know, is that you were put on that ship for a specific reason, maybe, and that they wanted something special from you.
Got it.
Which, who knows?
That could be interesting.
Yeah. Any other predictions?
Aaron?
Because I don't want you to even react. You know, I want to keep it ambiguous.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Unless you really want to.
I don't know if I have.
You guys don't need to. That was pretty much fine.
Do you have any hot takes about Val?
Well, we haven't gotten to delve into Val too
Mhm.
much.
I mean,
so
I have hot. No, just kidding.
yeah, you do. My hot takes aren't hot because there isn't anything to counter the heat from
Yeah.
the takes.
Yeah.
My predictions for Val is, like, obviously I think he has a history in the Empire. He's, whether he stole the rank of captain from like a dead body or maybe was a captain, like whatever. He has the persona of rank in the Empire.
Yeah.
And I think there's something to do with that.
Yeah.
I think that obviously there's some really cool like aberration like type energy like
With
hooked
his-
into what has cursed him. You know,
Yeah.
I have no predictions on what that could be because I really we haven't gotten to top
Yeah.
yet. Knowing Jack, he's roped it into something else that is connected to somebody else. So that's the only prediction I can make is some other character is gonna have something that ties to what is affecting you.
Okay.
All right. I like
Yeah.
it.
Well, I'm just excited hearing where you guys' minds are at with your backstories. Just because it means there's so much in the shadows that will just take you guys by surprise. I
Yeah.
mean, but I'm excited to see how these takes age.
Yeah,
It'll be fun. It'll be fun when things don't happen. It'll be fun when things maybe they do happen.
Yavik's just a totally normal guy.
Yeah.
Not a
Was
spy
there
at
one
all.
more segment you wanted to do?
Yep. There was
Yeah,
a
let's-
final segment if we
Alright.
have time. Right now.
Let's run it in.
Yeah, let's
yeah,
get it.
this won't be long. This will actually go the quickest. So this part we're gonna name now. Real quick, there will be huge arcs in the story that we're gonna go on.
Yeah.
But the kind of the sub arcs, the little ones,
Mm.
I want you guys to name those and give them names.
Oh.
This will probably happen every.
That are in progress or have happened?
No, so
That we've
from
done.
session 1 to 12, we pretty much we have the intro, and I want to say until
Back to Grey Ridge.
back to Grey Ridge and then Grey Ridge. No, I would say from the very beginning at Wicked Brick, maybe until West End, and then from like getting
All
the
the way
job
to
with
West End. Okay.
yeah, and then getting
I
the job
feel
from
that
Hugo
Yeah.
through the High Wall
Mm-hmm.
arc. I mean, you guys could be lazy and name it High Wall arc. I'm fine with that. So there's two. There's two arcs to
Okay.
name. There's the first one, which is session 1, basically just session like 7 or 8, or no, sorry, session 9, which is West End.
Yeah.
So it's like the job with the slave, and then you the slave trader, and then you go down south,
And then we run
talk
to
to
the
the
top
clan,
food.
Yeah.
and then you make your way finally to West End.
So you're asking what arc we think we're on right
No,
now?
he's
I'm
asking us
saying
to name those
I want
two
you to
arcs.
name the arc and like give it a name. This is some
That's-
on the spot
That's hard.
creativity.
The,
And
fir-
then-
the first one is hard because it's so many things.
yeah,
So
and
we-
it's I've even thought about it.
What is the name of the region that we were in?
The Grey Realm.
The Grey
So
Realm.
far, you've only been in the Grey Realm, I believe.
Right.
Yeah, there's some. I mean, you guys don't have to come to a conclusion
Totally.
because
Yeah.
people, we can name it.
The
quick.
fans will.
I'm okay
Right, Frank?
with the high wall arc for the second arc. I
Yeah,
think.
the second
Yeah.
arc makes sense.
That makes sense.
Or you could call it the Horn arc.
I like high wall. It sounds
Yeah.
better.
Yeah, it sounds better.
Yeah.
Yeah, High Wall arc.
Because there's a lot more than the heist that was encompassed in that.
Absolutely, but there is like an underlying. You gotta
Yeah.
look for the underlying.
We're there for the heist.
I would almost.
I would
call it-
say High Wall arc 1.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because we're coming back.
Yeah, or High Wall arc part 1. You know,
Yeah. No, I like that.
but the first arc. That's
First
that's the real one I want.
That is a doozy.
It's odd. It feels so coded to Roland because he was such a big part of all of that development.
Sure.
So I feel like it almost has to be tied into Roland in some capacity.
Yeah. Like the
See, I'm
the
thinking
Wraith arc.
the problem is I'm coming into episode name titles, which is not
Yeah.
the energy we're
Oh,
looking
yeah, no.
for.
I mean, Roland's a Wraith.
He is a Wraith.
You could call it the Wraith arc,
Mm-hmm.
but that's a little bit. I mean, that actually is fine.
Yeah.
I think it's cool, but
I feel like we can do better.
I think
Yeah.
you can.
The Crow arc.
Well, I mean, yeah.
What?
Well, it doesn't end with Ren.
Oh.
That's all the way until High Wall. So that would,
That's
I mean, Ren kind of exists outside of that.
Yeah, I'd say like, man, it's just so much meat.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's the meat and potatoes.
You can split it into two if you want.
I think that it might be easier to do Wicked Brick to Returning Salt of Fennec.
Okay.
As an arc.
Yeah.
And then the journey that we are on after our first job. Right?
Okay.
Because that is one
Until
job.
you get your next real job.
Until we get our next real job,
like the
right?
Unemployed arc.
I would
fine
say
with that.
we could, a recurring theme of that first arc is people getting caught off guard and getting that initial shot. I would almost consider calling it First Strike because it's us getting shot by lightning as an initial impact. It's also us, our first step in the campaign.
But I don't think First Strike arc, or,
That's
I don't
fair.
think it really has a ring to it. You kind of need to...
It's got to sound cool.
With names of, like, parts of the story, you kind of have to go more location, activity, person.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You kind of have to go with that.
I'm thinking on that.
Yeah. I mean, you guys can always...
Was there a specific name for the place where we found Saul?
Not that we know
that
of.
structure? Not that we know of? Okay.
I mean, I might go as far as say just to call it the Wicked Forest arc or like the Grey Realm arc. Obviously, we're gonna come back to that.
Yeah, or that first section could be called the Grey Realm arc.
Yeah.
Yeah, like that first
Yeah.
back to Grey Ridge, and then the part where we journey through the lower parts of the Grey Realm.
You could call it Bounty Hunter arc. The first one. Then. Well,
actually,
we're doing jobs.
We were just bounty hunters.
We're just bounty hunters. Yeah.
That's what you guys started as.
Yeah.
Dang, that's true.
I'm down with that.
Yeah.
Bounty
Hunter.
Bounty Hunter arc is the first one.
Yeah.
The second
But
arc.
the last one is High Wall arc part 1.
Yeah.
Okay.
What is the middle? The unemployment. I mean, Tathu arc part 1. Not just kidding.
So that's the arc where the Tathu clan happens and stuff.
It's the arc where we talk in the presidential suite in the Green Dragon.
Yeah.
No. That you're thinking of someone else.
What's that?
It's the Green Goblet.
The Green Goblet. We talk in the Green Goblet. Talk about Roland a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Go journey. Roland kills people.
Mm-hmm.
Stay at lake. Go to Tathu.
Yeah.
Get sad.
Horses die.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I would say
Dead horse arc.
Horse meat.
Just name the arcs by which horse meat it is. Horse meat 1. Horse meat 2.
Oh jeez.
Man, I would say like.
I would almost be willing to call that the Wraith arc because that's where you see a lot of Roland's development.
Yeah. And him returning the ring at the beginning, or like the like the what's like the downfall arc you could almost say.
Deconstruction arc, downfall arc.
Deconstruction's not bad, honestly.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say, but I was like, as a Christian guy, deconstruction just is a bad word.
The collapsible arc. The collapsible.
I'm just messing around.
No, for sure.
Like the deconstruction.
Yeah, I'm okay with the deconstruction arc.
Yeah,
so we
I
got
like that.
the bounty hunter arc.
Okay, bounty hunter arc, deconstruction arc.
Yeah.
Or should we call it the mercenary arc? Just so it's one word.
I like that.
Mercenary arc. Deconstruction is a long word. Throwing that out
Turmoil?
there.
No.
Maybe like. I mean, I guess The problem arc. No, yeah. I guess you kind of have to give it a name.
Roland arc.
No, I mean that's just too on the nose.
Yeah.
I think that's fine. I think
because there's a lot of division that happened between a lot of people.
Yeah.
In that, so.
And it also deconstructed a lot of players' perspectives of what their characters were going to be.
Mm-hmm.
And then the High Wall arc, part 1.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, we've gotten a lot of progress so far with the story.
Yeah.
And we've recorded, right now, 5 sessions after this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're on a roll. I mean,
I was gonna say because this feels so long.
Yeah,
now.
it
We
really
are. What session are we on? 18.
Next session will be session 18.
So we are 8 sessions away from being past what we did for Pomosa.
Wow. That's actually crazy.
In 4 months. 5 months?
Yeah,
5 months.
This is the. We're not even 5 months done.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
That's crazy.
we'll end up
Sweet.
taking a break about right when Primosa would have.
Oh, but we'll be back.
Oh, I mean, we won't even leave.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's been really fun.
Yeah.
Our first recap, we'll definitely, the next one will look a lot different just
Yeah.
because we'll watch back and we'll think, okay, we might do things different. And there'll be two different people sitting here because we're going to rotate through people. You guys will have to wait.
Oh.
Not that long because it goes by 2. So there's only going to be 4 pairs. But it probably won't be you 2 again. It'll probably like switch.
Right.
Up.
Yeah.
So enjoy your time together. This won't happen for a while.
Hey, it could be episode 104.
Yeah,
it really could. Thank you guys for tuning in. It's been really fun.
Mm-hmm.
And remember, share if you think that this was
When we
beneficial.
come back, there better be 1,000 subscribers.
Comment in the comments if you liked what we talked about. If you have any, if
Your
you
own
have
hot
any,
takes.
if you have any segment ideas
True.
for
Yeah.
what we could talk
Yeah,
about.
because this is our first one. We really aren't. We don't know everything. Not only segment ideas for just doing the recap differently if you want to see it. Ideas for things that us as a group, Grim Volume, can do that you guys want to see if you're watching this.
And before you start commenting on the actual setup ideas, we're on a budget.
very.
And we'll try to get 2 camera angles, one for him, one for the guests.
And more mics.
Yeah.
We'll get there.
We'll get there. This was good though.
It was.
Good stuff.
All right, guys.
All right.
Good to revisit. All right.
Thank you for watching.
Thanks for
We'll
watching.
cut that.
Much love.
We'll cut that. Thank you for watching. It's been awesome.
Thanks for watching some professional D&D players.
No.
And cut.
Oh, jeez. That was good.
That was really good.
I actually feel
That was a lot of fun.
So my idea, you know how I was talking to you about the idea? That was really good. For the intro being this like and there's like, this black and it's like, Yavik played by Kenny. Or so it shows like on one side Yavik, one side Kenny's face, in the darkness it's just white.
Oops.
For this, imagine we do like the intro and then it's just like bye. And it's a black screen.
See ya.
See you, bro. Thank you.
You should send that to me before you post it, just so I can send it to my wife. She'll
Absolutely.
love watching that.
It'll be a black screen. All right, see you, bro. Oh wait, yeah, go down the stairs and then out those double doors, then to the right.
Okay, thanks.
It'll be a black screen. It'll say, recap session or recap 1 through 12.
Right.
And then in the back, it'll have the outline of my face because I won't have. I mean, I'll have probably in the intro, and then on the other side of me, a face with a question mark and a face with a question mark. Because not only the recaps, there's lots of questions, but it's like we don't want to draw for each one.
Right.
We could, but right now it'll be a really easy way to do it.
Yeah. Did you stop the recording?
No.
There's a small chance the recording might stop.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, you just unplugged that. Oh.